Hello and welcome to our SEC football power rankings entering week 2. 1 week in the books for everybody in the SEC. We have done some reaction to week 1 results and shuffled our rankings. And Blake, who sponsors our rankings, please?
Once again, sponsored by the Miami Hurricanes NIL Collective here at Southeastern 16. No, it's BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Every stat, every matchup, live odds and spreads. During the games, if you know your stuff, you can get in on this $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head to the online casino, play some blackjack, over 150 slots games. It's all there. Head to their website today, get on the action, bet online. The game starts here.
All right, we start at the bottom in our power rankings. I'll have Blake reveal these one by one. Blake, who's our number 16 team?
Of course. You want me you goad me into coming on
you
this
in a hot
thing.
seat.
You want me to be on here for all the vitriol this season. These are not my power rankings, just for the record. These are not Chris's power rankings. These are not Chase's power rankings. They are a full staff composite that go beyond just the rankings of us three. So the Florida Gators
Chase,
are number 16.
Can you believe, Chase, we got Florida at 16?
No, I mean, but after watching Saturday's game, it was very disappointing. And after all the talk, I mean, and we've talked about Florida. Yeah, we talked about how tough the schedule is, but they have the players. Like we said, they have the talent. Graham Mertz proved himself, I think, last year as a decent quarterback of the SEC, and so I thought, well, him leading the team was going to help, but just disappointing in all phases, every way you look at that game Saturday was so disappointing for Florida. And maybe they can bounce back from this, but it's a tough way out. I feel like they're deep in a hole right now.
I didn't like the way they looked at the end of that game. I just didn't see a lot of fight left, and that's what concerned me a little bit. Speaking of concerns, I think we got some at 15 too, Blake.
Yeah, the 15 is the South Carolina Gamecocks, who beat Old Dominion 23-19. I think, Chris, we were talking about that game on Saturday night, and I think the phrase you used was, "Well, they won." And then I said, "Well, I don't know about that." I mean, they did, but I'm not sure for the fan base that was exactly what they wanted to see. We said Old Dominion, I think, was picked 6th in their division, and yeah. But I mean, look, it's like they won 23-19. You don't have to wait long to find out exactly where South Carolina stands since they play Kentucky on Saturday. So,
number 14 is
no one else. No one else has any thoughts on the game.
Oh well, sorry. I have concerns about their passing game. I have some concerns about their running game. I wanted to see Rocket Sanders a little more explosive and carrying the ball. Just didn't see it. Look, Shane Beamer's teams always get better. We say that every time. I'm not hitting the panic button yet on Carolina, but I think it's, Chase, fair to say we had some concerns there.
I mean, I have a lot of concerns. If you can't move the ball on Old Dominion, no discredit to them. You're not going to be able to move it this Saturday against Kentucky. You're not going to be able to move it against Oklahoma and Alabama and anybody else in the SEC. And so I think they've got a lot of work to do. But I am hitting the panic button on South Carolina. I feel like, even though it's the first game, and I try not to judge people by the first game, but they didn't look ready at all for that game. And I mean, that's on the coach's sub, that's on the player's sub, but they just didn't look ready.
Chris, you wearing a South Carolina shirt?
It's close. I feel like this covers a lot of teams. I mean, it could be Alabama, it could be A&M, it could be our number 14 team too.
Mississippi State, number 14.
Yeah, and look, State benefited from the taking candy from a baby portion of the schedule that most teams in the league played. But you wanted to see offense, which you figured you get from Jeff Lebby, but you also got a defense that gave up 7 points too. And I think that was where we had some of our concerns.
Yeah, we've said it. Mississippi State offensively, I think they're going to be all right. They have a plethora of running backs that got in the game. They They got some receivers. Blake Shapen played well against Eastern Kentucky. I think he's a good quarterback coming over from Baylor. But yeah, their defense is what we were concerned about, and maybe there still are some concerns, and still waiting for them to, I guess, get in the situation where we can really see their defense and who can shine on the defense. But yeah, I think the defense is a concern, giving up 7 points to Eastern Kentucky. I don't know when that happened during the game, but I know Mississippi State is going to be okay, I think, on offense with the guys they have.
Interesting game this week at Arizona State. Pac-12 after dark, although now it's what? Mountain West after dark, or what is it?
Big 12 after
West.
dark?
Big 12 after dark. Wrong Pac-12 school that got left out. Yeah, but that's an interesting one, though, I think, Mississippi State early. So, all right, Chris.
I can feel it getting geared up here because, this man's got a beef with this one. Blake, who's our number 13 team?
Number 13, and then the composite power rankings this week. I will not be claiming this one at all. I'm not sure how they got here, and you're going to realize that I'm not saying that in a bad way. Number 13 is Vanderbilt. I need all of you guys to explain yourselves as to why the Commodores are at 13 and not higher on this list.
Well, I think.
Go ahead, Chase.
Not everybody at once now. Okay.
Look, I liked their win. I thought that was great. I thought Vanderbilt looked good, but I'm going to need to see more out of them. Like, for Florida, I could just tell that this is not going to be a good year. Vanderbilt, I think maybe things could look different. I think I may have them up farther next week or in the next few weeks if they keep winning. But I feel like I need to see a little bit more out of them. I like what I saw, though. Virginia Tech didn't look great at times. The ACC together does not look great to me, maybe besides Miami. But, I need to see a little more Vandy. I hope they keep going up. I hope I'm putting them in the top 10 next week.
Chris,
like I need you to flash an anchor down. Come on, do it.
Well, if I do, will something pop up on the screen behind me?
I don't know. That's up Saturday to you.
All right, look, I say this because I know, like, the thing we do with the power rankings, right? And I almost feel like I'm always on the power rankings because I have to explain this. Like, you can do power rankings one of two ways. And, like, if you Google some SEC power rankings for week 2 right now, guess what? You're going to find some that have Vanderbilt at number 2 in the SEC.
What?
Because it's based on what you've seen to this point, right? And so, listen, I was the high man on Vanderbilt this week. Looking at our composite rankings, I'm well aware I was the high man. I didn't put them at 2, but I did have them a few spots higher than this. But when you start at the bottom, that's what happens. It takes a little while to move up further, so I get it. I'm just messing around with you guys. But you got to give the Commodores some credit. I thought they deserved a little more credit here than number 13 in the power rankings.
Blake, do you know how many wins they had against Power 5 teams this decade coming into Saturday?
How many?
That many.
How about this, Chris? Do you know how many wins they have against Power 5 teams in the 24 college football season? They got more.
They got half that.
They got more than about 7 other teams in front of them. So I'm just messing with you guys. I'm trying to give the Commodores some love here after the upset of the century against the Hokies at First Bank Stadium.
I was also trying to dupe you into ballooning yourself on your own birthday, but you figured that out and didn't fall for it. If you saw the live stream Saturday night, you'll know what we're talking about.
We'll speed up from here. Let's call the Hogs. Right. Arkansas is number 12.
Yep. I like the way they look, guys.
I do too. I mean, I thought, and of course, again, Arkansas Pine Bluff, it's hard to, gauge what Arkansas is going to be playing them, but I think they do have they got some guys this year that, and I think having Bobby Petrino leading the offense will definitely be a change for Arkansas in a good way.
Curious what you guys think about number 11, Kentucky. We only got to see them for however long we got to see them before the second weather delay against Southern Miss. So what about the Big Blue Nation and their new quarterback, Brock Vandagriff?
I think we have a big difference of opinion here. I really like this team coming in and beating Southern Miss 31-0, and 35 minutes of action didn't really dampen any of my enthusiasm. The defense is pretty strong.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I think what we've talked about Kentucky's defense in the preseason, get ready for that. I mean, I think they're there. I mean, I think this is a good defense, and that's going to keep them in a lot of ball games. Brock Vandegrift, I thought looked good from what I saw of him, and so I think this could be a decent Kentucky team.
All right, number 10 in the composite Southeastern 16 rankings this week, the Auburn Tigers, one of many SEC teams to win by 60-plus points this week.
Chase, you watched a lot of that, and I try not to overreact to teams just clobbering the teams that everybody knows they're going to clobber, but I think we wanted to know about that offense, and it felt like, for whatever it's worth, it looked a lot better.
Well, they've got receivers this year, and I think that's the biggest thing that stood out to me is in years past, and especially last year, Peyton Thorne stepping up there looking for somewhere to throw. And even in these games like this where they're playing Alabama A&M and whoever it is, these lower-level teams, Peyton Thorne still couldn't find anybody to throw to. But he has guys all over the field this year that he can throw to. I think that's the biggest thing for me for Auburn. And we've talked about the receivers all summer, Cam Coleman and these guys coming in. Like, that was the biggest difference in why they got to 70 whatever points that they did, is because they have guys that can catch the ball. And so I think that's a big difference for Auburn this year, and that will help tremendously. But the offense just looks so much better this year. Hugh Freeze calling plays. They got receivers. I mean, it looks like a world of difference, because last year they wouldn't have scored 70-something points on anybody. And so I think for them to be able to do that shows a lot.
All right, what was the biggest takeaway from number 9, Chris? The Aggies, who, while we were doing the live stream, seemed to be okay, but didn't happen. The Fighting Irish go in and get the win in College Station.
Well, the vibe out of College Station is the concerns about the offense are back. And I think there's something there. I also thought Notre Dame's defense was awfully good. So there's that. I mean, we left them where we had them going in, and that feels about right to me. But we'll see. I bet you they will be lower in some other power rankings, Chase.
Yeah, I mean, they got to finish. I feel like they offensively just lost all momentum towards the end of that game, and just they were panicking, and you can't do that. I mean, they're going to be in more close games this year, and you can't panic in situations like that. So that concerns me a little bit about the offense. It's just they couldn't finish, and I felt like they were just panicking towards the end of that game, trying to get something going instead of being comfortable doing what you've been doing all game and putting some points up. Well, they hadn't been putting points up all game, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, speaking of finishing, well, you guys, you use multiple phrases maybe. Brian Kelly was not happy about this, that's for sure.
He's
LSU,
angry.
He is angry. Is number 8 in our Week 2 composite power rankings, which I was curious where LSU would wind up because, again, it just there's obviously reasons to be frustrated if you're Brian Kelly after that game. So,
yeah, the discipline and the penalties at the wrong. I mean, they set up the field goal with an obvious targeting. Yeah, the celebration call and the late touchdown. I mean, it just you wanted to see not self-inflicted. Now, I did the bright spot. I thought their defense looked a little bit better. We talked about Ashton Stamps, him being a big guy to focus on. He did some good things. He also, I think, gave up the go-ahead touchdown at the end. But, yeah, I'm not – look, Brian Kelly's lost what? LSU's lost 5 – is it 5 openers in a row now, Chase?
Something like that. I know the last several. So that curse continued. But, yeah, I thought their defense was some better. Miller Moss for USC is a good quarterback. I was impressed by him. And so, they were able to stop him some. And so I think that is a bright spot for LSU, that they are somewhat better on defense. And maybe it's just going to take a few games to get better on all sides. But, I don't think that you can, because I think USC is much better than they have been in the last few years. I don't know if you really should have a major panic moment on LSU, but there are some questions, I think.
Well, back-to-back winless teams. Meanwhile, the Vanderbilt Commodores sitting at number 13 in the composite rankings this week. A&M at 9, LSU at 8. But in all seriousness, now we kind of get to the portion of the power rankings where it's like nothing's really changed very much here the rest of the way. So we will kind of speed through these because we've already talked quite a bit about a lot of these teams on the reaction show and all that, and there were some pretty dominant wins. Oklahoma is at 7 this week. Chris, anything else you want to add on the Sooners here?
Yeah, I wanted to see a little bit more from their offense. They had some injuries. Gavin Sawchuk, I guess, had a soft tissue injury. You had the injury to the center to start the game. You had Nick Anderson was out. And they got it big against a bad Temple team. The defense forced 6 turnovers. I mean, I wanted to see more out of the offense. I'm not going to say I'm concerned, but because I'm not, and I think their defense is as good as we thought it would be. But I wanted to see a little bit more out of the offense, and we'll see what that looks like this week. I think it's against Houston, right?
Yeah. But their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games, I think.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that game. Houston did not look great in game 1 against UNLV. So, all right, number 6, Missouri. The Tigers here at number 6, which I think, are they back a spot from where they were previously?
They are.
Did Tennessee jump them in the composite rankings this week?
They did. Yeah, I mean, it looked fine for Missouri. Again, another opponent they were going to kill. They got, time to the backup quarterback, Drew Pine, most, if not all, the second half. Defense was good. I think there was a pick 6 in there. There was. So, yeah, I mean, this is the portion where you had a lot of teams blowing other teams out. Most of those teams weren't very good, so it's hard to know what to take away.
All right, Chase, any thoughts on the Vols? I know I spoiled that a second ago. Tennessee moves up to number 5, the Nico era, in full swing after a 69-3 win over Chattanooga.
And boy, he looked good. I like the way the Tennessee offense looks. It's what we thought, and I've said all summer I wanted to wait and see till I buy into all this to see how good Nico is. And again, I know we'll find out a lot more about him maybe this week against North Carolina State and against Oklahoma when they start SEC play. But I like the way he looked. He looked really sharp. Great passer, great quarterback. I think he's going to do great things at Tennessee starting this year.
Well,
by the way, I don't like moving teams up based on obliterating FCS teams, but I don't make it a hard. I mean, I think the internet was just buzzing about how good he looked, and I think it feels like right now they are that 5 is deserved. We'll see. Now, I think the top 4 teams are on a level above everybody else, and that starts with number 4. And I actually had Alabama higher than the composite did. So
interesting. Yeah, I mean they dominate again. Everybody's coming in. You're like, this ain't gonna look like Alabama, and look like Alabama, Chase.
They did. TJ Finley, the quarterback for Western Kentucky. We know TJ Finley's made 18 stops in college football. He's been at LSU, he's been at Auburn, and now he's at Western Kentucky. And he was able to do some things on Alabama, especially in the first half. And so I think maybe fixing some things on defense is going to be the focus for Alabama. Offense looked good. Ryan Williams, freshman wide receiver, looked good. Justice Haynes looked good. Jan Miller running the ball. I mean, so overall, especially on offense, they look really good, picking up right where they left off.
You guys look good on offense. The Longhorns, Texas. Yeah, Chris. I mean, we said it was probably just a matter of seeing, what you got from this team right off the bat. You knew lost some playmakers from last year, had the running back injuries in the preseason, and they just came out and took it to Colorado State.
I haven't seen a line on Michigan yet, but they got to be favored after the way they looked and the way Michigan looked week 1, right?
I'm going to find that for you.
Okay.
But yeah, it was not. It's not exactly, but yeah, Texas is 6. Here you go. Early line, 6.5 point road favorite in that game. How about that?
Wow.
That might not be enough.
Maybe not. But guess what, everyone? You can find out because we will have that game previewed here at Southeastern 16 coming up on Tuesday. So, all right, number 2, Ole Miss, the Rebels, took it to what I know people are not believing, but it's a good Furman team. Ole Miss just went out and, again, as we said on the reaction show Saturday night, could have scored 100 if they wanted to.
Yeah, I'm really impressed, and I've covered FCS football. I've covered these type teams, and so to see them beat Furman the way I do, I was really impressed. And I think the defense for Ole Miss this year is, everybody likes to talk about Lane Kiffin offense, but the defense this year spectacular, and it's going to be a fun year in Oxford, Mississippi, based off what I saw Saturday.
By the way, just quickly,
Number
the
one.
Texas
Go ahead.
Michigan line opened at 3.5 and has quickly sped up to 6.5. So that kind of tells you
Yeah.
where people are on these two teams. All right, Chris, number one, the Georgia Bulldogs.
Who else?
Vanderbilt.
You're gonna die on the hill, aren't you?
I'm just saying. I mean,
I don't know if that's a hill to die on, but it is free country.
Hey, these power rankings are a weekly tradition here. They're not a yearly thing, right? So we're not picking them for the rest of the year. We're just picking them for this week. So, all right, I'm just messing around. Any additional thoughts on the dominant Georgia Bulldogs who just, blew out Clemson?
I mean, with their schedule, it's going to be tough for them to go unbeaten, anybody really. But they to me, excuse me, are the only team I feel like are good enough to go unbeaten all the way through the year, all the way through the playoffs as well.
Well, and they did it without their best running back, without a depth piece there. Revamped receiver. I mean, you lost debatably the best tight end in the history of the SEC. Ozzie Newsome's got a place on the list too, but maybe one of the best too. You lost your number one wide receiver to the draft. You lost a guy in camp to off-field stuff, and they just do what they do. They just plug in with other pieces, and they kill you with 9 guys catching passes and 6 guys getting carries or whatever it was. And but you know what? When the thing we also said, that offensive line was so good that it helps mitigate the losses of those guys, and it did. I mean, and you know what? I know Clemson is not a juggernaut, but holding Clemson to 3 points in an offensive, I mean, you saw the point numbers put up across the country, and I thought that was just impressive.
There you go. Week 2, Southeastern 16 composite power rankings in the books.
Happy birthday to our man Blake.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
I will donate to your favorite collective if you would like to celebrate. Chris has already donated to the Miami one. We know that for a fact. So, yeah.
All right. Glad the season's underway. It's a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what the rankings look like next week. We're still in the soft underbelly portion of the schedule for a lot of teams. But we got some good games coming up. We'll be back next Monday to power rank. Lots of content at the channel in the meantime. Predictions, reactions to whatever is worth reacting to. If you're interested in advertising, reach millions of people a year. Caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. For Chase Robinson and Blake Lovell, these are SEC Power Rankings for Week 2 presented by BetOnline.